Adrian just mentioned, France are through to the quarterfinals, where they will meet either Portugal or Slovenia, who kick off later this evening at 8 o'clock. But Didi, it has to be said, that was a less than inspiring performance by France. Belgium were even worse, so on the day, the better team won.
Yeah, I'd call it professional, workmanlike. Yeah. They did what they have to do, as they have done so often. Again, their defence stood up, when really tested by Belgium. And you always get one or two chances against you. There was a shot from Lukaku, one from De Bruyne, which was pretty comfortable save. They didn't really have their clear-cut chance, Belgium, where you think they have to score. And I've got to say, Doku was brilliant. Doku was outstanding, I feel. He was the only player, I think, who comes out with any credit. They defended okay, Belgium, but they showed nothing going forward. They didn't even try to go forward because in the second half, I think they wanted to get into extra time and maybe then to penalties. And the French were pretty comfortable. And yeah, that's what they do. And as I said before, the feeling I've got with Germany, maybe England, I don't think it takes an awful lot to unsettle these teams. I still think, even though they haven't been brilliant, it wasn't a brilliant performance by France by any stretch of the imagination, I still think it takes a very good team to take them out. And I'm not sure whether there's too many in the competition when it comes to it in a knockout game to beat them.
Yeah, and on the balance of play in that second half, Shea, in particular, I mean, OK, a lot of chances from distance, a lot of speculative shots, but they dominated Belgium throughout. And can we just talk about the Belgium team for a moment? Because I suppose in many ways it's the end of an era for what was a golden generation.
Yeah.
Previously to this tournament, they'd lost the likes of Kompany and Hazard and Witsel. And you can imagine now there may be a few more retirements. Maybe Vertonghen will go. I don't know whether De Bruyne would even consider his position within the national team, because he hasn't had a good time with them this time.
No, the cameraman's closing up in De Bruyne there. Obviously, you can see him. You know, he's disappointed, hugely disappointed after the game. Vertonghen, his last touch in a Belgium shirt probably at 37 was a deflected own goal. You know, there's no fairy tale ending for him either. So Lukaku as well, we'll have a look at him, and just in his 30s now as well, looks slowing up, should we say. But yeah, I mean, France have gone through, and probably, as you said, Peter, deserved to go through, but it wasn't a classic by any stretch of the imagination. Did his right workmanlike, got the job done, and had huge luck, of course, with the goal, because we were sitting there off air saying, you know, this has got extra time written all over it. Because, you know, both teams are getting a bit desperate, shooting from long distance as well.
Yeah, and Lisa, Didi has faith in France that they possibly have what it takes to go the distance in the tournament. What do you think of it so far? 4 matches in, 2 own goals they've benefited from, and a penalty kick. They haven't scored themselves from open play yet, which is an extraordinary stat when you think of it.
It is really, when you think about the quality that they have in the team. But what I like about France is their commitment to keep doing the things they believe in, and they did that today, is because each team they're playing against is putting up different types of challenges. I'm not sure we expected Belgium to be so deep and so low in the first half. And France had to figure that out and try and find the spaces that they wanted. And as the game wore on, and particularly in the second half, when the game opened up a little bit more, they were much more effective at doing that. But I do think you can see the patterns and the quality in France. What I like about France is that they have the capacity to, not just as a team, but also with individual players, to come up with different solutions against different types of challenges. And over the course of a tournament, that's what you need to do. And sometimes the games won't be pretty. And the reality is, if they go on and win the tournament, no one will be talking about these unless you have a key moment, like Bellingham's bicycle kick. Something like that will be the standout moment. But generally, teams will just do what they have to do, and at the same time try and expend as little energy as possible by getting the win, because they want to be fresh and have, their best 11. The squad, Didi touched on it, the 26 they have is sensational, the whole squad. But I think it'll take a really good team to beat France. I don't see too many holes in that team.
And Deschamps probably receives more criticism at home than he does internationally, because his achievements are widely acknowledged. But in many ways, Didi, is this kind of typical of the France team under Didier Deschamps? Despite all the talent at his disposal, he still is quite a conservative manager, but it has worked for him in the past.
Yeah, it has, and it's very hard, almost impossible, to play entertaining and successful football at the same time. And we know all the teams they can defend, and if you play against a team that sits back with 11 men in the last 30-35 yards, it's very hard to break them down. Obviously you have to try to tire them out, which they did as good as possible, and then you have to wait and you have to be patient, because it's, as we've seen so often, even the big teams, it's very hard because there's no gaps. There's so many bodies behind the ball. It's almost impossible to get through. But they are patient. They wait for their chance. They tire them out. Belgium got tired. So I think if it had gone to extra time, I think there would have been only one winner with France. But that's what they do, and I don't think Deschamps cares about it too much. Obviously, the people see the squad and they say, "Well, look at the squad of 26 players you've got. You've got to play more, expanding football." But he says, "No, it's a results business. We're in the last 8 again. Obviously, if Portugal win, they'll have a tough game, and then obviously Spain and Germany. They've got to do it the hard way if they want to win the European Championship this time. But they've done it before. They know what it takes, and." My only worry about them would be that sometimes I think, not today, I think they were very professional. Sometimes they can be a bit casual because they know how good they are and they get away with things. And but when it comes to the knockout stage, usually they're pretty reliable, and still we haven't seen the best, or, well, have we seen anything of Mbappe so far? We haven't. After 4 games, and as you said, they haven't scored a goal, which obviously, if you keep a clean sheet, you only need one. It doesn't matter how it happens. I've just seen the stats again, 1 shot on target. I don't think the goal is on target, actually. So I don't think they're a shot on target at all. And if you don't have a shot on target and win a knockout game, then it's a pretty good effort.
Yeah, it certainly is. Just speaking of those box office players, the likes of, I mean, we were just talking about Kevin De Bruyne not performing at this tournament. Mbappe, yet really to put in a typical performance at the standards that we're used to seeing him. And it's been a bit of a theme now throughout this championship. Even though we've had some good team performances, some of the outstanding individuals haven't really come to the party. Is that a case of these very long seasons, possibly, an awful lot of competition domestically and in Europe, maybe taking its toll on some of them?
Yeah, it's a really good point, Peter. Like the likes of the players you mentioned, they're playing in Champions League football, they're league football. I think next year the Champions League is more games even again.
Yeah.
You know, the powers that be don't seem to be listening to the players, and I think everyone knows players are very well paid, but they have to respect their human beings as well. And you know, they get lots of injuries, and a few of the players you mentioned looked a bit tired, looked a bit leggy. I mean, Lukaku, De Bruyne, they all looked a bit maybe leggy, and that's maybe at the end of a long, hard season. You know, they're going in. You look at Man City, for example, they go long into every single competition. You know, the Champions League, the FA Cup, they're all at the most finals every year. So these players are playing 60 and 70 games per season. And then they've, you know, when other players are having a break now, they're having to go off and play for their country. And, you know, I've done it myself. There seems to be no break because there's teams starting this week, pre-season training. These guys are still over here playing in the major finals as well, you know, so they'll get a week or 2 off if they're lucky before they have to go again over another 11-month season. So that's a really good point.
And, you know, I mean, I know there are people out there, Lisa, who would have very little sympathy for the multi-millionaire footballers who live luxurious and lavish lifestyles, and some would say are mollycoddled in this day and age compared to what it was in recent years. But surely it has to take its toll, the amount of physical exertion and the non-stop playing of very significant matches for a lot of the top players.
Yeah, but I think as well the psychological pressure on players is much higher now than it ever was before. You've got social media, there's so many opinions. And as part of my role with FIFA, I actually get to work with a lot of the managers after World Cups. And I got to speak to Deschamps and Southgate and Lionel Scaloni about managing your players in a tournament. And, you know, sometimes a lot of the outside noise, like you're dealing with world-class players, they're physically fit, they're mentally, you know, they're in great condition, they're technically brilliant, tactically really astute, intelligent players. But often you have to have the player in the right mindset and you have to have them psychologically able to play.
So are you saying that's taken a toll more so than the physical exertion?
I think it's part of it now, because I think, you know, 10, 15 years ago, they didn't have that level of criticism available to them. And I think if you look at the England team, it's a case in point as well. But I do feel that, you know, players have, it's not just about being physically and technically able to deliver. You have to be mentally ready and able to deliver. And plus, I think teams have become better at negating the impact of key players. You'll see often they're doubling up on certain, you know, star players, and that we see that all the time. So I think it is harder to sometimes get your key player into a game. but you'll still leave them in because they're the player who can still produce that moment of magic. And it is a low-scoring game. And as I think, Shay, you said that you only need one moment of magic. And I think that's why managers persist with players who don't look like they're having a great game, but they can still produce that moment of magic.
But having said that, in the early stages in the group phase, we had more goals than ever before. So, I mean, teams were producing the goods in the early stages. As the competition gets into the knockout phase, do you think they become far more conservative? Does the approach change from the coaches?
Well, it might get a bit more edgy. It depends how you approach things. France, they've got a lot of belief in their own abilities. So they say, well, we try to score. If we don't score, we take him to extra time. And maybe we bring one or two players on, take a bit more risk. But what you don't want to do is go into a knockout game and you're 2-0 down after 30 minutes. Because then you have to chase the game. And you make it hard for yourself. So, yes, I think it's normal that it gets a bit more edgy. I think in Belgium's case, I think they lack belief. I don't think they believe today they can beat them. And you touched on the fitness of, Lukaku. I don't know how many games he's played this season, but he hasn't looked fit for the last 3 years. And De Bruyne, I think there's a lot of talk about him going to Saudi. I think he's had it as well. I think we've seen the best of De Bruyne. He's had one chance. Yeah. I think 5 years ago he would have been to the ball half a yard before or earlier, so the defender can't put the challenge in, and he would have had the time to maybe place the ball and put it next to the far post. Here he had to rush. He just got there. He had to get his shot off because the defender was very close. So I think De Bruyne, I doubt we see him again in a Belgium shirt, because I think he's in the late autumn of his career.
Yeah, and that would certainly spell the end of that golden generation. They had so many talented players and possibly didn't take full advantage of it. But Belgium are out. Extra time wasn't required in Dusseldorf today as France have gone through, winning by 1-0. I can imagine that they're looking into a period of reconstruction now as far as their team is concerned. They'll be looking for some new blood to come through. And of course, the winner of that game goes through to play Portugal or Slovenia, who will be on at 8 o'clock this evening in the quarter-final. OK, we're going to have a look back at that goal that decided the issue. It's been credited to Jan Vertonghen, not the way he wanted to bow out Shea, but this all started a long way from the Belgian goal,
I
didn't
mean,
it?
I would like to highlight that point. Most we can come back to it in a minute, but Lukaku has to hold the ball up, Peter. It's a simple ball in. Saliba gets a toe in. He should never get a toe in. Now what happens, the whole Belgian team have got to, go back and defend the edge of their box again. Sprint 90 yards because your striker hasn't held the ball up higher up the pitch. But I mean, it's good build-up play, you could say, from France at this stage now. But Belgium are back into a relatively good shape. We spoke about that. Lisa mentioned at half-time. They're sitting in a low block. They are at this point as well. It seems to be no real danger at this point. But now Vertonghen, you see, we talk about Vertonghen, maybe last game for Belgium as well. Can he get a bit closer there? He just seems to drop off from a yard. Yes, he's unlucky. This is the point I want to make here. If that's going up to an Alan Shearer or a Didier Drogba or any sort of number 9 with sort of that physical presence, Peter, it can't come off him. Saliba cannot get that ball, and then this doesn't happen. And I know people who might thought it's a small, it's a massive point. Your big striker holding the ball up. Yes, there's luck at the end of it. We see here the strike is going wide, and that's why it's been, credit to Vertonghen, who obviously doesn't want it, but that's the laws, and they gave it to him. Deschamps is delighted, but again, it's just so frustrating from a Belgian point of view, because if I was playing that was my striker, Saliba shouldn't get anywhere near it. Like the strength of Lukaku as well, he shouldn't get anywhere near the ball, and then he can sort of link players up around the edge of the box. So it comes from Lukaku, in my opinion, and it's a poor goal to give away.
But isn't that a strength usually of Lukaku's game?
Yeah.
Is that ability? Once you say when he's between the ball and the centre back usually has no chance of getting it, and his attitude just seemed to be half-hearted. He's just. I just think his attitude is really poor today.
I think Didi hits the nail on the head. He doesn't look fit. Like, he looks a bit overweight and stuff. And then
it wasn't a thankful game for a centre forward today in Belgium's case, because obviously they played long balls a lot of the time, and it's hard because the ball's coming. You have to wrestle with the defender, which uses up a lot of energy. But this is a ball where he's asking for it. He's got him here. Yeah, he's got his arm out. He's got him here. And it's not the only time it's happened. It happened a few times, and these are the times of when you lose a ball which hurts, because this is 80, 82, 83 minutes in, and you go 80 yards the other way, and he's got a defender here. He's got Saliba there, and he wants the ball because he's not the player who plays the ball. The guy who receives tells the other guy when he wants it, and he looks at him and he says, "Come on, give it to me." And then he's got him for some reason because he's tired. He's maybe not in the physical shape he should be. Saliba around the corner gets a toe to it. They go the other way, and obviously they got the ultimate punishment with a deflected goal. But it starts from him, and this is potentially a chance because if he holds the ball up, maybe can lay it off, get a crossing, get a corner, maybe get a free kick, go the other way. You can see the goal, and it all started with him.
Yeah, I know he's been Belgium's leading international scorer, Lisa, but there has to be a reason too why he's moved possibly early from clubs. So Manchester United was a typical case in point. I mean, he didn't perform for Manchester United, and at one stage, certainly after he initially arrived, they suggested again that he didn't look fit. He got fit for maybe a season, and then he seemed to go off the boil again.
Yeah,
there seems to be a running theme there with him.
Yeah, and I've covered a couple of Belgium's game in this tournament, and I've talked about his mood, his humour. And sometimes, you can tell by him early in the game if he's in the mood or not, and if he's in, and he just hasn't looked at it. And his early touches have been, not great. He's not imposing. Maybe he's not happy because he's been asked to drop off and play in that 4-4-2 and do all that work without the ball, which you don't really associate that with Belgium and the quality of their players. You don't usually see them so deep, and and then the fact that he has that lapse, and if you do lose the ball, you expect the player that loses the ball to be the first one to try and go after it and stop the counter attack, because when teams are in transitioning from attacking to defending, that's when the gaps are. That's the most opportune time to hit a team. And effectively, he gave France the opportunity they were absolutely waiting for. Other players were really strong and quick at getting back, but the gaps were there, and France just played through them, and eventually they get in on the opposite side.
I think he summed up his tournament today because he's been given offside. He scored 2-3 goals where he was given offside by half an inch. Then Snicko judged a handball by Openda where he scored a goal against Slovakia, and this was just centre forwards. They're streaky players. They're centre forwards. They score for 5 or 6 games, and then they go cold for 8 weeks, and then they score for 6 or 7 games again. And I think for him, it just summed the whole tournament up for him. Shall we say, was just rather unfortunate in the early games, and today it is a mistake. He's got to do better. He's got to do better there, and I'm not sure whether he reflects on it, but when he sees that, I'm sure he'd admit he's got to make that ball stick and keep possession.
Yeah, and he's definitely another one of those Belgian players in the latter stages of his career, and he could very well be considering his international career after they've bowed out, but I suppose that's for another day. Diddy, what about France? I mean, they produced, they were restricted to a lot of speculative efforts from outside the box, a few headers here and there. How can they produce more than what we see here?
Well, people might say now, everybody's having a go at England. What is France doing different to England? Because everybody's saying, it takes a good team to beat them. And everybody's having a go at England. I think what the difference is, first of all, they do control games. They hardly allowed Belgium a goal-scoring opportunity. And I think what let them down today, some were speculative chances, not clear-cut chances. I think this is probably a better chance than it actually looks. What let him down today was the finishing, because I think Mbappe 3 or 4 opportunities today where he's got to do better. Yeah, Germany had one in the first half. This is a poor shot. He hits it. It's just a poor finish by a central midfielder. Here again, this is even worse. Look at Saliba. He misses with the inside of his foot on the near post. Never seen a miss like this. Here, this is a bit fortunate. It wasn't meant for Mbappe, but he's 14, 15 yards out. So they had opportunities in the first half a couple of times. In the second half, where on another day you expect him to finish one, and then it's a different game. They can play on the counter-attack. I think this is what sets them apart from England, for example. They do control games. They do create opportunities. Today, I think the finishing let him down.
Yeah, still a bit worrying, I suppose, Shay. I mean, Griezmann's was the only shot on target, apart from the goal. Griezmann's was the only shot on target in that second half.
Yeah, it's weird. I mean, we spoke about them before the tournament, and for strong favourites. And, Didi mentioned before the game, look at their bench today, even the strength they have in depth. They've probably got the best squad, I think, at the Euros. What 2 OGs and a penalty, you said? It's just crazy, isn't it, to think at this stage and into the quarterfinals now. And we've not seen the best. I mean, I suppose that's a worrying thing maybe for the rest of the thing. We've not seen the best of France yet. It feels like they're building up to a big sort of show or a big performance, and maybe they're waiting for the final.
Yeah, hopefully better to come from France. Belgium bow out. Let's have a look at the couple of things they did produce in that second half. I think Mike Maignan was only tested once by Belgium. It kind of typified their second half, didn't it?
Yeah, and like France were quite well organised, you know, and Carrasco puts this ball in, and it's you just see here the break. This is the best chance, I think. Kevin De Bruyne, a superb ball, and Carrasco really has to get that on target. He probably needs to hit that a little bit earlier, actually. I think he just gives the defender too much time. Again, another one here. They just get between the lines. Lukaku. It's just they were always a fraction off. Everything is just half a yard, half a second, just too slow. Again, another one from De Bruyne, he hits the target. But again, you expect a player coming in and follow up to get on the end of the rebound there. And that's what I just think it was completely symptomatic of Belgium's performance. Was they were, you know, the couple of chances that they did create. At this, you're not always going to get big chances. And certainly the way Belgium set up, they weren't going to get many chances. So they had to really capitalise on them when they did. And I still think half a yard, half a second, you know, just little switches off cost them in the final third when they had chances that they really could have scored from.
Sort of some of them there wasn't enough belief, it seemed. You know, the Carrasco chance, you're right.
Yeah.
He has to hit that earlier, Peter. You know, he's in a brilliant position. Yeah, it's a great recovery tackle from Hernandez, but he shouldn't have given the opportunity. You know, we're talking about Mike Maignan, one of probably the best goalkeepers at the tournament. Like long-range shots, I would expect him to make them save. You know, but maybe Belgium has a belief. Even look at the bench: Trossard, Tielemans. The manager never really changed it late on to actually be more offensive and go. Let's try and put more pressure on France. They were kind of nearly happy to get to extra time, perhaps, and obviously it's bit them in the backside with the OG.
Yeah, that's one thing that struck me, Diddy, that neither manager really utilised a lot of players on the bench. Do you think both were thinking extra time's on the cards here, so I better be conservative in terms of the changes that I might make?
Yeah, I think Deschamps was always pretty confident. I think he knew we take it to extra time. I don't think there was a need for them to take a chance. On the other hand, Belgium maybe should have taken a chance because it was probably the best chance to win it in the last 10 minutes when it was 0-0. But then again, once you get to extra time, you only got half an hour to get to penalties. And when it goes to penalties, you've got a 50-50 chance to beat them. And Tedesco made them changes. He brought Mangala on, and then he brought De Ketelaere on and Lucky Bacchio when they went down, but obviously it was too late. And they put a bit of pressure on without really creating a chance after they went behind. And you always felt that France was pretty comfortable. And I think that's the thing when we talk about France, we haven't seen the best of them, and this is why they're so dangerous. I always feel, I might be wrong, I always feel they've got at least one, maybe 2 or 3 gears left. I always think they just do what they have to do. Their game management, I think, is brilliant. And people might say, well, this is quite an average team. But I think this is a bigger skill to win the games they do. Because without extending themselves, they win this game. They sit on the coach in an hour's time. And they say, let's see who we get tonight, who's in the next round. And they play the same way. They won't do anything any different, whether it's Slovenia or whether it's Portugal. They play the same way. And the outcome probably will be the same again.
And on that theme, there's an interesting stat because France are the first team in the history of the Euros to play 4 matches and not score one single goal from open play, and yet they're through to the quarterfinals. And as far as Didi is concerned, and I'm sure Lisa and Shay as well, they remain very much among the favourites.